Hello my fellow Ghoul Renegade, and welcome back to a brand new video. And today we are continuing Iris Week. Now, I would like to mention we are now jumping into another part of the Iris story, known as the Behemoth arc. Now, the first video we watched, I think about an hour ago as I uploaded it then, we watched Hither and Yonder, and Hither and Yonder is a video that I like to categorize in a personal arc that I like to call the Vegala arc. Now, I would like to mention that the Vegala arc and the Behemoth arc, they go one in one with each other, as the same story that's told in this arc is actually retold again in the Vegala arc. So we're going to learn a little bit more about this later. But this is the first version of that story. Now, in the Vegala arc, it's heavily chopped down, but it's still told in a pretty simple way to understand. So we're just going to watch this. We're going to let Will read it, and then I'm going to interject at certain points. But I am going to mention that this story is 3 paragraphs long, as you can see here in this little minute part. And the only other thing I would like to mention is on the left-hand side, this little cool skeleton dude you see right here, that is our main protagonist, known as Goliath. Now, he actually doesn't show up until the end of this story, at least in this arc. And the other character we see over here is a giant moth entity known as the Motho Hive. And it's like the greatest threat in all of the Iris universe. But let's just go about the story, let Will read it, and you guys should understand with my little interjections.
Legend. A word with promise of history written in stone. Legend foretold of a land long and far, its sanctum drizzled with magma, darkness, skies crimson red, and mountains cutting through the anxious clouds. It is here on this hellish nadir that legend was born, and would most surely be tested through the eye of the beholder.
Okay.
Long ago lived a symbol of beginnings and ends to our lives. The galaxy brings gifts, and these gifts are spread far and wide. There lived a treasure from unknown territory, far beyond legend. One born for archival, tainted with our very pasts, presents, and futures. An emblem only the most powerful could harness. This emblem would be known in myth as the Iris Emblem. It seeks to protect the course of nature by paving neutral peace against divergent chaos. The emblem originated from a solid foundation floating through our cosmos, a mystical paraphernalia named Ether, plummeting toward a chasm-like magma boulder. It is there that a gateway to the afterlife was created, an open breach for the deceased to roam free. There stood the first 2 beings to walk this abyss, sent from afar. 2 strays from outer worlds, in pursuit of the emblem, Father Tyrant and Lady Fate. Born from unknown territories to us, it was here they had scattered the molten field in search of what they desired. Days turned to months. Minutes began to feel like a millennia. Alas, what they were destined to find was merely a morsel of what laid among the horizon. Several lost souls roamed this hellscape. Darkness engrossed the layers of rock with a sentient and darkened energy. Many of these souls lived with a thickened layer of evil attached to them, emitting vitriol resonance. But of course, many projected a more fragile presence, coupled with ones of courage. It so happens that this land has existed for centuries. Devoid of life, it became a field of hopelessness and decay, souls violently swinging for one another. It appears the core was nothing shy of harsh territory for both Tyrant and Fate, a land recalled in tales as the Depths.
So, just like in Hither and Yonder, the video we watched previously, the Depths was never known as the Depths, at least to the kingdom and the deities of Vegala Infinity. It was known solely as Vegala Zero. And what Vegala Zero was really meant to be was a planet that was simply just born on the edge of their infinity. Just there to chill out, hang out, possibly destroy itself along the way, because that's what the deities of Vegala Infinity did. They recorded the lives of each planet to ensure a longer future for all planets, essentially. Now, this is kind of going a little bit more into the story of the Vegala arc, so I don't want to say too much more, but we do learn that the 2 vigilantes, or the 2 people, I think I called them the 2 vigilantes, the Father Tyrant and Lady Fate, they came from the same birthplace as the Iris, which is Vegala Infinity, and that is why they are tracking it here to Vegala Zero, because it went missing. Now that's part of the Vegala arc. Can't tell you any more about Tyrant and Fate because they're brought up a lot in the Vegala arc and their story becomes very, very important later.
There on the apex of the depths lived a ruler of these spirits, King Vicen Pavavori. Exterior like charcoal, interior of bloodshed. Vicen had allowed anarchy to break through the depths and continue the damnation for eons. He is said to have given up on peace, as it was a formidable work of fiction and fantasy, and thus order through trials of fire were put in place. Father Tyrant and Lady Fate climbed to this peak, as night turned to day, without a glimmer of what night and day meant here. Once reaching the top...
Oh, one more thing I would like to mention real quick is that Vicen Pavavori, the current king of the planet of the depths, also known as Vegala Zero, this is not the only time he's ever going to be brought up within the story. He is a reoccurring character, maybe just not as reoccurring as maybe Will would like him to be, but he's reoccurring enough to where he is somewhat important to the story.
Warrior from within spoke to their instinct, pushed for ingress between the gates of this fortress, and land prey to a battleground where the trial by fire commences. And so the fight begins. Foreign heroes against the Pavavori tribe. It is with great haste, suspense, sacrifice, and pride that long after the fight, Vicen had been dethroned, laying on the ground in remnants of ash.
Wow.
Before he could perish, fate and threatening fates were beckoned to the two heroes.
Pick the fruit from a tree and it will come down. With no plateau beholding comes the end to the crown. Does thee cast blindness to the shadows up there? Lay haste to the paradigm born from blackness glare. Not even we of Ghoul may proclaim victory. As a deep looming manifest will create darker history. Bipolesian, Crostanoctus, Angzosax, Tormentus and Grief, their immortality would thrive, as when all would join forces, bring out the Mother Hive. Heed those words well, and pray not go unguided. Such is the Pavavori's final smile. When your world becomes sorely divided, we will never be too far. So perish, as you may have already decided.
One thing I would like to say real quick is that Will, in a lot of his videos, he's an amazing voice actor, and he tells the story really well. Now, a lot of you may be confused of exactly what Vicen is talking about. I can only give you a little glimpse of what he's talking about, but basically what he told Father Tyrant and Lady Fate is that one day this prophecy of the Motho Hive will be fulfilled. He doesn't know when, he doesn't know how, but he just knows when all of these beasts come together, the Bipolesian, Claustronoxus, Angzosax, Tormentus, and Grief, when they all come together, the Motho Hive is going to come as well to destroy the planet of the depths, or Vegala Zero. So basically he's saying that this is going to happen. He just doesn't know when, hence why it's a prophecy. But soon, at some point in time, Tyrant and Fate are going to find out exactly what this prophecy means. And it will lead to the greatest creation ever. You'll see what I mean. Can't spoil it.
Fog clouded the room as Tyrant emits one final cast of his staff. A wormhole is opened where the Pavavori colonials perished, sent to live in an eternity of nothingness forever. Suddenly, what was once blocked from entry, a liquid substance floods from the fortress, and what was once merely a ring-shaped crevice filled with substance in a matter of minutes, what we would come to call Omen Water, a purification liquid. It is with this victory Tyrant and Fate built a brand new order for the depths. New decrees were made to keep order and peace in harmony. They discovered the Iris was capable of harnessing far more than just spiritual essence, but was driven to bring extra protection and power through the Omen Water. Post-haste, Lady Fate combines the river with the Iris emblem, and is now capable of purification in spirits and delegation between those that are corrupt and those who were born for something more. As new spirits came flooding through the lands, more would land in the Omen rivers. Those who were corrupt were banished to the same endless void the Pavavori colony remained. those who remained untainted were given entry to the Onyx Colony and remained there forever in a new afterlife.
Okay, that part is very interesting. So basically, to give a little bit more explanation on that, spirits who came to the depths, since the depths is in the realm of Hitherfall, as explained in Hither and Yonder. Hitherfall is the land of the afterlife, while Yonderfall is the land of the living. So basically, when you're a new spirit to the land of Hitherfall, you're going to be born on the planet that you lived on before. So whoever was born on the planet that's subsequent to Vegala Zero in the land of Yonderthal, they're going to be reborn in Hitherfall on Vegala Zero, of course. I think I'm remembering from Hither and Yonder, the planet equivalent to the depths in Yonderthal is called Ventraseed. At least that's what Will calls it, but we know it as another name. For those of us who know the story, we know it as a planet called Nidoria. So basically, both the planets are connected. Just to not spoil too much of the lore, they're connected. So when you're washed in the Omen water, you are actually reborn into the Onyx Colony, which the Onyx Colony is the tribe that Lady and Fate and Father Tyrant run after this whole debacle happens. So that's the name of their colony, the Onyx Colony. Whereas, King Vice in Pavivori, his colony was called the Pavivori tribe. Father Tyrant and Lady Fate's colony, the Onyx Colony. And those who were banished, who were bad, they got sent to the same Endless Void as Vicen and his tribe. Now, that Endless Void, it's not given a name as of this minute, but we later come to know it as the Damned. I use that word lightly, but that's just what it's called in the story. So don't blame me. If there's any parents watching this video with their children, please don't blame me. That's what it's called. You can do your own research on this. There's a whole wiki full of Iris information. Like, you can go look it up. It's the Will Ryan Originals wiki. You can go look up all information about Iris over there. It has all the stories. Iris, Solitude, Pandorian, the Anthology, all of that. So please don't blame me. I'm just saying. Let's continue.
Years had passed. The depths was colonized, creating societies made from the crimson onyx they stood upon. However, the new world flooded with colony civilians, and the depths had become overwhelmed. It was decided that many needed to leave. Knowing they could never banish innocent souls, they had trained many up as the Arcadian soldiers in the event of an evident overturn, casting them abilities risen from the mystical entities they beheld. While these soldiers were trained for combat, they were in for far more cataclysm than once thought.
Okay. One thing I would also like to explain, as this is explained a little bit later as well, if you're thinking that the Arcadian soldiers, or I call them the Arcanian soldiers, but in this video they're called the Arcadian soldiers, but I call them the Arcanian, because of arcane is spelt with an E, and now that could be a simple spelling mistake by Will, and I don't doubt if it is. But if you're thinking that the Arcanian soldiers are a different legion of soldiers than the Onyx Colony, that's actually where you'd be wrong. They're actually Onyx Colony soldiers, but they have powers now. So that's interesting. Yeah, it'll be explained what these powers are later down the line, or I could explain it now. The Arcanian powers, they basically have fire, water, and lightning powers. So elemental powers, essentially. And that's what makes them special. I think it'll be explained in this next little part.
The eruption of their wormhole had brought a dark matter to life, breeding a new devious energy across their scope. Built from unknown origin, creatures started falling from the sky in the form of paradigm worms and leeching light from the depths as they dug underneath its surface, charging straight towards the core. Such a curse had not gone unprepared, as Tyrant had planned for days like this one, as did the heeded warning from the fallen Pavivori. As such, he recruited the finest soldiers in the land to help protect what was soon to become the Age of Calamity once more. 20 of the greatest Arcanes and Legion soldiers, in their few, marched alongside Tyrant and Fate through dangerous territories not explored since Dawn began. Many days and months passed, soldiers, kings and queens still marching through gusts of anarchy. They encountered their first monstrosities blocking their path. Each born from the culmination of paradigm worms leeching off the planet, it seems they needed this essence to slowly become true to life in the form of chaotic and blackened creatures sizes bigger than our own. The Claustronoctus, feral and feline-esque, the Bipolisian, a venomous and eight-legged nightmare, and the Anzosax, an aviator of destruction. Havoc ensued for hours before the soldiers all took their victory lap as the depth's first threats fled from the scene.
Okay, now I'd like to explain as of this point, the event known as the Jaws of Dawn has officially begun, and they have just fought off their first three monsters formed from the Paradigm Worms. These are the same creatures that Vysen Pavori talked about in his prophecy. So now the prophecy, as of this point, is coming true, to fruition, fully. And we can only expect what happens when the Mothel Hive comes in.
Traveling through the Cave of Blind Fortunes, Tyrant and Fate found a gauntlet and summoned many to ignite the flames once more, bringing light inside the Tomb of Unwanted Shadows.
Okay.
To their misfortune, they were not alone here. Paradigm worms lurked on the cave walls and on the ground. Soldiers were tasked in clearing the landscape from parasites until the time the gauntlet could be reignited. Many took the leap to travel far, and many had chosen to stand their ground. But after time took its course, the gauntlet was ignited, bleeding those flames through the cave. When all became visible, there lay a manifestation of chaos, larger and more hellish than the last. The grief worm stood tall, boasting millions of jaws surrounding its entire body, capable of constricting several at a time, and using its many jaws to tear free flesh, bones, and even consuming spirits. The fight was not lost, and while many of the soldiers remained wounded, desperate for help, but sacrificial in others' own love of life to keep them alive above all, the grief worm was defeated, and also fled from the tomb. It appears all had been banished from the depths. The air grew thicker with silence. The end of the tunnel felt nigh. Tyrant and Fate decided to set camp for their squadron overnight to heal from their wounds.
Okay.
Day turned to night once more. Many songs were sung in merry cheer, laughter inbound. It was clear in their hearts victory was theirs, and they could safely retreat home.
Now, I would like to mention a lot of the music that is being played in the background while Will is narrating the story in in a voice changer, obviously. That all the music that is made by Will himself. So, and all of these songs, a lot of them, are coming from the official Jaws of Dawn soundtrack. Now, what's interesting about the Jaws of Dawn soundtrack is that it was actually made for a Dungeons & Dragons live campaign that Will did on his channel. And that is also in this playlist that I'm watching right now. But that is 5 hours long. So go watch that at your own expense if you want to really dive into Jaws of Dawn and watch the full campaign. It's really good. The full campaign is amazing. If you want to waste 5 hours, it's a good time waster to watch or even just to listen to. Go watch that. I heavily employ it. But this is the more simplified version of the story. Granted that it is 15 minutes long, and my video is approximately 18 minutes long as of now. But let's finish this up and let's continue.
But unfortunately, happiness was merely temporary.
Ooh.
As a large shriek resonated through the clouds, so powerful it parted the sky, as crimson red bled through the cave. Even stranger, they were heralded with a largely emitted light that shone upon them, distorting their sight. Tyrant and Fate stood atop the cliff as the land traveled beyond mountains and hillsides. There, in the jaws of dawn, beholdeth the largest beast ever to have swooped the depths. Wingspan double its own body, casting its monstrous size as a shadow across the entire peripheral view, to make what felt like night again. Its eyes a rich blood red, and a large light-absorbing antennae charging closer to the colony soldiers. This was no ordinary encounter, and by no means a threat to ignore. After all, the Paradigm Worms absorbed enough energy from the depths, and could finally create its biggest, and far from final form, the Mother Hive. Soldiers had their souls absorbed, one by one many had fallen. Sacrificial healing was bestowed from allies, and if not for those sacrifices, may have stood the test of time together as one. Trying to keep one alive meant many had perished all the same. To Tyrant's astonishment, however, all but one had fallen, and as the final bow for the soldier was taken, all hope felt lost. Tyrant and Fate were the only ones left standing. In a desolate haste, Tyrant opened up the wormhole to the very same dark abyss the Palavori colony was banished, the Damned.
Okay, that's okay. Right there is where they mention the name of the wormhole. So, okay, there's my confirmation. There's my proof right there. That's what it's called.
Tyrant had come to forge a deal with Vicent to bring these soldiers to life, to best the beast again, before it can get stronger. To Vicent's surprise, his monologue turned out to have predicted the existence of these beasts of unknown origin. Fearing these beasts were only in myth, it is now revealed to have come true, and feeling backed into a corner, Vicent decided to bargain with Tyrant in besting the beast once more, so it may not harm again. But a deal was made in return. When the mightiest falls, Tyrant and Fate's firstborn will be cast away to the Damned, never to be released again. A cold-hearted deal from an even colder-hearted deviant. However, what other choice did the world have? One dies for many to live. A sacrifice Tyrant felt was well made. Vicent begrudgingly passed Tyrant a healing talisman. The deal was also to flip the talisman, and if landed on the right face, will bring everything back. Land on the wrong face, Vicent keeps his regards with nothing to sacrifice in return. With an anxious flip, the talisman landed on the ground. Tyrant looked down, and as a tear shed from his eyes, the soldiers were revived once more,
Let's
being
go.
given a second chance. They all banded together once more, channeled their arcane energy, and charged for the Mother Hive. It seems while Mother Hive may have been weakened, the beast was capable of bringing one final blow to Tyrant and Fate. They drew blood, and the blood lay waste to Mother Hive's claws. Suddenly, from a combination of Tyrant and Fate's blood, and the Mother Hive's resonant manifestation, light emitted from the Titan as a rather large and unknown object landed before them. And with this, the Mother Hive collapsed in a weakened state. The soldiers banded together in victory once more, collected the remnants of the Mother Hive, and left to return back home. Tyrant and Fate, however, remained with this newfound creation. It was a rather oddly shaped egg, emitting a purple haze wrapping around a dark essence. Days of concern went by as the travel home felt even more tiresome. But out of surprise, the egg began to hatch. And what was inside came out neither dark matter nor human, but what appeared to be an amalgamation of both. A new breed had become of the depths and was adopted into care by Tyrant and Fate. What felt like a victory to them gave new inspiration for the name and legends they would write for this new member to the colony. And it was written that Goliath was born.
And that, my dear friends, is how our main protagonist of the story, Goliath, came into being. So what happened there was when the Motho Hive slashed at Tyrant and Fate in its last and final attack, it drew blood for them. And it turns out the Motho Hive was a surrogate egg holder. So when Father Tyrant and Lady Fate's blood combined with the dark matter resonance of the Motho Hive, it created the egg, thus forming a fusion of both of their bloodlines, a creature of dark matter and of whatever alien species that Tyrant and Fate came from, thus creating an egg, thus creating Goliath. Now, we're actually going to learn a lot more about Goliath when we dive back into the Vegala arc, as that is coming up very soon. That is going to be our next few videos that we're going to be watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. So please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications for when I upload new videos, and make sure to follow my social media links down in the description below to join the Ghoul Renegade. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!